It was a big shift for me as a scientist to all of a sudden have my entire world flipped upside down. I couldn't unsee this. I couldn't
Right.
unexperience it. I know what a hallucination is like. This is not one of them.
Hi, Nancy. Thanks for joining me. I heard you had a near-death experience. Let's hear about it.
I was a scientist, a science writer. I did a lot of technical writing. I really didn't believe in anything other than, this physical existence. At the time that this all happened, I was living near Boulder, Colorado. I was on a bicycle in a bike lane doing my errands around town and was hit by a woman driving a very large SUV. She was texting. She wasn't paying attention to what she was doing, blew through the intersection and just hit me broadside. I did manage to get stuck on the underside of her vehicle. And I know that sounds horrible, but it was better than the alternative. I had the experience during that time of being in two places at once. One was still in me, in my body, under the vehicle, and another part of me, which I would call my soul or my higher self, was standing off at a distance observing the whole thing. The part of me that was still in my body was very afraid, as you can imagine. It really just focused on survival at that point, doing everything I could to stay alive. And then that part of me that was outside of the accident, really, for want of a better term, out of body, was very calm and serene almost, saying, this is all going to be fine. Don't worry, it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. I knew that the part of me that was under the vehicle, the human me, knew that something had just changed, but I didn't have the time or the ability at that point to really start thinking about it because I was focused on survival. When the paramedics got there, which was pretty quick, that's when kind of both of those aspects of my consciousness merged back into my body. It turns out once they got me to the ER, my spine was basically broken. I mean, I had 9 vertebrae that were cracked all to pieces. One of them was almost completely blown apart. They stopped counting fractures at 100. Most of the damage was to my neck and my spine, all up and down. Luckily, I had a helmet on. I would have probably died had I not had a helmet. So in the ER, everything was cool. I mean, I didn't have any experiences there, but I did have to go into surgery a few days later just to repair, all the damage in my spine so that I could walk again. This happened on a Friday, so I was in, ICU over the weekend, and then I went into surgery on Monday afternoon. And as soon as the anesthetic was put into me, I coded. I had no blood pressure, no pulse, my breathing stopped. And then I found myself on a hillside standing up and I'm like, wait a minute, this is not where I'm supposed to be right now. And so I knew right then something was up. I didn't know what it was right away, but I remember that I was in surgery. I remember I was really badly injured. And so what am I doing? Standing up on a hillside looking out over mountains and forests. And it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong, it was amazingly beautiful, but I was confused really at first. Time in these NDEs, I'm sure you've heard and your audience has heard, we can't really equate time here to time on the other side. So it's hard to know how long I was really in that state, but it seemed like a long time. And after a little while, a couple of things started to occur to me. I started to notice that I was feeling almost like an energy coming into me, but it wasn't like heat or sound or anything like that. Somehow I knew that it was the energy of divine love. And I don't know how I knew that. It felt peaceful and calming and loving and accepting. And that's when I kind of did an internal double take, like, wait a minute, my background as a kid told me that I wouldn't have any chance at all of going to a happy afterlife. That wasn't, for somebody who was a non-believer, that wasn't in the cards. And what I was starting to feel was acceptance for who I was and love, and kind of a welcoming presence was there. It was almost like it was really like being cradled or hugged, but very gently, with full knowledge of who I was and that I had, we all screw up in our lives, but that I was still welcomed and accepted. And then I began to wonder, like, whoa, wait a minute, this isn't right. When I began to wonder if I had died on the operating table. I was still that analytical about the whole thing. As a scientist, here I am still trying to analyze what was going on. And that seemed like a really strong possibility. And then the second thought was, well, wait a minute, if I had died, why am I here? with this loving presence, with all of this love and acceptance, because I was told that I would not go to any place happy. I didn't voice that out loud. That was really an internal wondering, like we have a thought, we wonder about it. The answer came from outside everywhere. I can't say that it was a male voice or a female voice, but it was very powerful. But that voice said, this is your home. You are a part of me. You're a kind of a child was the implication. You're a part of me. You're part of this realm. This is your home. Welcome home. And I still kind of get choked up about it because it was so loving. And when that voice came and said that, then I realized, oh my God, now I remember that earth thing. That was just a temporary existence. And this really is home. And I remembered that this place, this state of being was home. This state of consciousness was home for our souls. And I just wept. I felt like I was weeping or crying. It was just so powerful and moving. And finally, there was what felt like a female presence kind of come into the area of where I was standing. It was really hard for me to get a clear view of her face, sort of a little fuzzy, but she gave me this big, amazing hug and told me that she was going to teach me what I needed to know in order to go back to my life on earth and make it one that was worth living. I mean, at the point that I had gone into this NDE, I was relatively unhappy. But she said, the point of this is that I want you to go back, or we want you to go back and have a loving, happy existence and help other people in your family learn to love, to be loved, to experience love, to share, to really live in a loving and compassionate way. That was really why she was helping me. And first, when she said to go back to your life on earth, I really did not want to go. It's kind of funny because I sort of pitched a fit. At that point, it was like I was a 2-year-old having a temper tantrum. Not quite that bad, not rolling on the ground, but I was not happy about the idea of being sent back. But she said, well, you've already agreed to go back. That was part of your plan when you chose this life that you're in right now as Nancy. And I said, well, I sort of said, I just really don't remember that part. So she showed me what that looked like. It was almost like a video. It was more than that, but the closest I can come is like a big video in the air in front of me of her observing me with, I guess you could call them the angels and maybe God as well, or that divine presence, kind of agreeing to some of the things that I wanted to do and experience, but also how I wanted to serve. What I had agreed to was to be basically an atheist. I wanted to experience that turning away from